the example I like to say is, hey, is two a lot? And you're, well, I don't know. Well, if it's $2, no, but if it's two Nobel Prizes, then yes, it's a
Yeah.
lot. You don't know. And so that's the example I give about domain knowledge. You have to have that to be a good analyst too.
That is so, yes. There's one thing I value, it's real talk. I'm super excited to have you on Real Talk, Derek Camp, because I heard you on a Real Talk. It was a podcast you did. I got to go pull that podcast out. And I just thought, this man's approach to data analytics, I wish everybody was listening to him. I really thought, like, your process and how you questioned and how you pulled, and then what you, like, I just loved everything about it. So I'm super excited to have you here. And you are local, I would say local magic in the Magic City. And so it's exciting to have you here. Give me the Derek Camp. What are you? Who are you? Tell everybody about you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I very much appreciate it. My name's Derek Camp. I am the supply chain manager for Fenwick Food Group.
Okay.
Fenwick owns Wickles, Pickles, and Moore's Marinade. And so we are in Birmingham. I've been here for about 6 months. And so I work a lot with supply chain, but I'm also building up the data side of the company. And for the previous 11 and a half years, I worked at another CPG company here in Birmingham. You might have heard of them.
Okay. Awesome.
So I worked in analytics for sales and marketing and operations, going through logistics, supply chain, quality, maintenance, production, just doing analytics for a bunch of different areas.
Data. There's so much data in manufacturing, distribution, supply chain. I mean, there's so much data. It's an explosive amount of data, and it takes diligence and care to get it all in an order where you can actually make it actionable and do something with it across your organization. So I love Wickles, Pickles. I don't want to eat a deviled egg without Wickles relish. I have a brother that if I don't bring him, and I don't even know what it's called, but it's red. It's a sandwich spread. If I don't bring him, the red spread. If I don't bring him that, he's like, "Why didn't you bring me the Wickles?" And I don't know that I'd ever made the correlation with Moore's, but I feel like I grew up eating that on every hamburger or a piece of meat that was ever, is either Dale's or Moore's or both. You know, I don't know which one, but right. Yeah. Love Wickles, Pickles. Do they make a chow chow?
No, closest thing would be a relish.
The relish. Okay. Yeah. Okay. My son has discovered that he loves that. And I'm thinking, okay, Wickles has got to have something that can serve this purpose for him on the things that he wants to eat.
I mean, we have an innovation team, so who knows? It may come up with that one day.
I love it. So everybody that comes on the show gets the same questions, and I love that part of this because I love to see how people answer questions. And I know from data, you put a data prompt out there, everybody who responds to it's going to have a different response to it. And it's been fun working with professionals, local and otherwise, to ask these questions. I think it's important for people to hear from us so they can learn how to make adjustments and pivots, which is a very data thing to do throughout their career. So I'm going to dive right on and just say, let's talk about some of your earliest career-related pivots.
And kind of funny you asked that question. I feel like my whole career is a pivot.
Okay.
I started out in college. I majored in geography and earned a master's in marketing. And so you put those two together, it's sort of an odd combination, but I wanted to do site selection. So if I worked for Walmart, I would pick out the site for the new Walmart.
Okay.
And so, that didn't pan out. I went to work for a GIS company, a geographic information systems company, and then kind of pivoted into banking and then pivoted to retail and then in marketing roles. And then somehow ended up in a CPG company and working in data and now working in supply chain. And if you were to go back in time and tell my college age self, when you hit this point in your career, you're going to be working with data and you're going to be working in supply chain, I would be thinking, are you crazy?
Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah.
I haven't even studied any of that. And just working through and getting exposure. I guess for me, as I always like to learn things, and if something piques my interest, maybe we'll start going down that path. And so whenever somebody asks me, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? It's always sort of a hard question to answer in terms of, I want to be doing this and I want to be doing this. I mean, ultimately, what I'm doing now, I would like to progress in it, but it's really my answer is I just want to be moving forward.
I love that.
Whether it's, hey, you're moving up to a director or VP level, or hey, we see you're doing well in this job and we're going to move you over into this role because the company needs somebody in this role and we think you would do well at it, and it opens up a whole new avenue. So just be moving forward is sort of the approach I've taken.
Okay. I like how you said your career has been a lot of nothing but pivots.
Very
data
much.
And otherwise. So that's pretty awesome. So I went to school for public relations and marketing. So there's that.
I understand.
Yeah. Tech was not on my radar. When I was coming up, it was like, you could be a school teacher, you could be a nurse. And I'm like, wait, what? I don't want to do any of that. And I moved to Birmingham and stumbled into tech. Yeah. Right. So and do you consider yourself technical? I guess is my very first question. Do you consider yourself a technical person? And have you always wanted to work in a technical realm? That seems maybe like a crazy question to ask, but
I mean, I guess it's all relative. I know people who are, really heavy into machine learning and AI, okay. And I am not that technical. And so if you were to look at it through that lens, I would say, no, I'm not technical. But when I meet with my boss and he's like, okay, you have this technical skill about getting data together and doing that, which I don't want to do. That's why we brought you on board. And through that lens, I guess you could say I am technical, but
you're crazy. Yeah, you're definitely technical.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on who's asking the question and what reference.
I totally get that. I get that.
I'm probably more technical than some and less technical than others.
I think you're just the right type. Right. You've got that business process, that professional acumen, and then you've got that technical. You probably serve as an amazing liaison between a pure non-technical and a heavy technical.
I'd like to think so. Yeah. I'd like to think so. And that's sort of where you can be really good at data, but it's how you communicate it.
Oh,
that's where that comes in. Because you can have all the data in the world and they can have all the insights in the world, but if you can't communicate it properly to get the insight across to take the action, then it's way harder to get that done.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes I encounter people, they want to do advanced data analysis. They want to grow up and be data scientists, and I get all that. That's fine. There's far more need in our businesses than that, though. We don't need hundreds of data scientists and hundreds of machine learning professionals, but we do need most of our business people practicing solid data analysis in the workplace. Yeah. And we have to have that data engineering function that puts these data sets together for folks.
Yeah, I was speaking to another group and just told them that when you hear data, I want to work in data. There are many different areas you can do. You could be a data engineer. You could be a data scientist, and go into machine learning, or you could be an analyst and go through the data and find the insights. And so it's really where each individual person kind of where their skill set and where they want to go.
Yeah,
There's
natural.
not one data job that fits everybody.
That's right. That's right. Which makes it exceptionally hard for organizations, right?
Yeah, because if somebody's trying to hire one person to do multiple data jobs, it takes different skill sets, and I don't want to stereotype anybody, but it's also different personalities to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you're a person, which I think we were a little bit similar, like you got enough technical, you got enough professional, you could probably solve a lot of problems in a lot of different ways for people. And then you become the Swiss Army knife. And then they want nothing but Swiss Army knives forever. And it's like, well, you got lucky to land that little Swiss Army knife inside your organization. And not everybody can go different directions. Some people do. They are highly inclined to go very specialized in this one direction. And I think it does make it challenging for us to, find the right people for the right roles. Cause like a data analyst over here is not the same as a data analyst over here.
100%. I've seen different jobs posting where, they have really high criteria and really high level needs for a data analyst. And then you go to another job posting, a data analyst, and it's, hey, we just want you to look through data. We don't want you. You don't need to be able to be a complicated data scientist to do that. And so if you ever see a job description, you need to kind of read through it and just make sure you understand what they're asking for, regardless of what the title is.
Yeah. I love how you talk about clean spreadsheets and realizing that, there's sometimes your spreadsheets are not always, or your data sets are not always clean when they come to you.
Yeah. I tell you, I took a sort of a non-traditional approach to data, like career path, I guess, speaking. I just kind of went into a company and they had a lot of nice, clean data sets. And so it was way easier. You could just kind of pull it. You could manipulate it how you wanted to. You could find your insights, and you didn't spend a lot of your time cleaning the data. There was some you had to do, but then I worked on one project where the data was just in disarray, and it was a mess, and it took forever to clean it up. And you had to make sure that you were doing it right. You weren't losing data from one, column to another. And so, if you in your job and you get to work with clean, structured data, then go thank whoever set it up for you. Because
thank all the data engineers.
Yeah.
That's provided you this data set.
Yes. Take them to lunch or something, because you don't know how good you have it.
Yeah. This is something that in our collegiate programs, when we work with students, this is one of the key things we have to break down for them, because we'll show up and we'll give them the prompts and we'll say, this is what we want you to do. And they're like, where's the data? I'm like, what do you mean? Where's the data? You gotta go get it. And they're like, what do you mean go get it? I'm like, you got to go get it. I'm not handing it to you. You have to go. Well, we don't have any data. And so their response was, we'll call the customer. And these are real customers, because we do real life, real projects, like real hands-on. There's just low stakes. Call the customer up, like, well, hey, I would like to know, do you have data about this? Or can you give me a data set about this? And so then they start receiving different data sets. And they're like, none of this stuff is together. How do I put all this together? I'm like, what do you think the job is?
Yeah. I mean, people get this impression sometimes that if you work in data and you're just making reports and running reports, and that's not the whole job.
That's the end of it.
I mean, yeah, that's the end of it. If you're lucky enough to get clean data, then most of your time is spent digging through it. And if you don't have clean data, then a lot of your time is spent cleaning the data.
Yeah. I think it's hard for people. I don't know. I have the value of, like, I can design databases and warehouses and software. But the way we store data and the way we report data have totally different. Like when we're designing data to be stored, we're trying to, like, not replicate it, not duplicate it, not make it redundant. And when we report on it, we're like pulling it all together and saying, let's hook this to this. And then there is some redundancy and it's great. But like they're two totally different things, to store data and then to display data.
Yeah. And then when you're building it, you have to build the data and keep in mind how you're going to be using it for reporting.
Yes. And it has to, at the same time, remain repeatable. So you can have new data.
Yes.
Without having to rebuild the process.
Yes.
Every single week or month or yeah. I love that. I love every part of the job. I just love every part of the job. I don't do every part of the job, but I love every part of the job. Yeah, I love seeing it all come together.
There's something about the satisfaction you have after you're talking about you had to rebuild the report every week to do this, and then you get to come in and hit the refresh button. And then it's just done for you. That is, you're talking about a pivot. That was the day I could do that was fantastic.
It's just a life-changing feeling when you can automate.
Yes.
And when you realize, wait a second, who cares how you even automated it? As long as you took a legitimate path and documented it and you worked within the constraints and all that, like when you automate something and you save either your self time or others time or in an organization at scale time, it is hard to beat.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. I was working with our director of logistics, and she needed some information, and so I pulled it together for her pretty quick and sent it to her. And we had gotten her spoiled because then she wrote back on Teams, well, can I just refresh this, or do we have to do this every week? And so, like, we'd gotten her spoiled to just going in and it was sort of a power query into Excel for her.
I love it.
And she had just gotten spoiled because it used to be, hey, I gotta repull this data and format it, and now it was, here's the report, hit refresh, and you're good for last week's data.
I can never get tired of that.
Yeah, and so I had to give her a hard time about it. We're pretty close, and I was just thinking, I sent a joke back to her about it, but definitely from when I worked at, we got the operations team kind of spoiled with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can do that today. Like I've been working, trying to do the same thing for 25 years. It is way easier today, even if it is an Excel and Power Query and connected to some system somewhere or modeled somewhere else. Like it's easier today to give those refresh buttons than ever.
Oh yeah.
Like the way we used to have to do it and the way that everybody has the luxury of doing it today. Ridiculous. Also scary though. Because back in the day, if you ended up with a refresh button, you had to go like you knew every single piece of where everything was because you had to basically hand build it across. We didn't have cloud software. We didn't have all these tools. We basically had servers and closets and SQL databases and applications that were brand new because the internet and websites were brand new. So we had to do a lot. Now today, like somebody could go pull a data set, generate something, create something fantastic, and it completely not be repeatable or real or validated. So there's a little bit of scary with the tools capabilities, but like, so why we focus on the foundational elements, right? It's like, how does this actually come together? Is this actually right? There's a, and I know this is true for you just because I can tell, there's a ton of analytics that happen around the data before you ever get to the analytics that you're actually performing to solve the problem. Like, how many record counts are there? Did this actually pull everything over? That sort of thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, just the verification of the data before you hand it off. I mean, did you pull from the right table? Did somebody, we stopped updating this table and now it's in this table. Well, you didn't tell us that. So we've been pulling from this table.
Yeah.
And so, I always try to work with a subject matter expert, especially when I was working, if we were working with quality and I would team up with the quality manager, and we would get the report, we would get the data together, and then I would give it to him and say, okay, I don't know quality as well as you do, so you need to tell me, does this pass the smell test for
Oh, I
you?
love that.
Does this look right? And he would say yes or no, and it's like, okay, something's wrong. We need to go back in and figure out where the problem is and where we're pulling the data from, because when was between us two, it wasn't a big deal, but we had to get that there was an error that we caught. But when he started presenting it to higher levels, it had to be right. And so I always tell anybody that's working in data, unless you are a complete domain knowledge expert on that area, always team up with a subject matter expert, because
that's great advice.
You bring sort of the technical data skills to pull the data and to format the data and to kind of, maybe put it in a Power BI, nice looking Power BI report. But the subject matter expert has the domain knowledge that can easily pick out, this doesn't look right, this doesn't look right.
Or that context.
This looks perfect. Yeah,
that context. Yes.
So the example I like to say is, hey, is 2 a lot? And you're, well, I don't know. Well, if it's $2, no. But if it's 2 Nobel Prizes, then yes, it's a lot. Yeah. You don't know. And so that's the example I give about domain knowledge. You have to have that to be a good analyst too.
That is so, yes. And how do you, because I'm assuming that, and I think you've mentioned you were able to bring up multiple junior analysts along with you. Did you have a hard time conveying that over to them? And how do you tell someone how to partner up with a subject matter expert when they themselves may feel intimidated when they're comparing themselves to a machine learning data engineer doing predictive analytics on, how we're curing cancer? You know what I mean? And you're talking about, let's get this data right inside a manufacturing plant. It's a different. How do you help them team up with when they may be feeling inadequate with their skill sets compared to something that the hype cycle is
well, what I did was we hired on analysts, and we would say, okay, your focus is supply chain. And so your focus is quality, and your focus is logistics, and your focus is production and maintenance. And so, that's your realm. And so I would communicate clear that the expectation is that every day you need to be learning about logistics, or you need to be learning about supply chain, or you need to be learning about production. And now all that's going to do is build your knowledge. And then it was, okay, the expectation is you're going to have a one-on-one with your subject matter expert every week. And you're going to talk about the projects, and you're going to talk about what they need. And, if they have a category review coming up with a carrier in logistics, then you sit down with them and you talk through what data do you want to pull and what data do you want to show? What point are you trying to get across? And so we didn't focus on sort of the external noise of, hey, this is AI curing cancer. This was, your area is logistics, or your area is quality, and it's your job to support quality through analytics.
Derek, that's so good, man. I really appreciate that a lot. That is so good, because it is so hard. Like, sometimes I just wish people would settle down, because early in my career, I was brought in and said, this is like, here, they, no joke, brought me procedures at least this deep and said, your first weeks here are doing nothing but reading these procedures and understanding everything that happens around here. And then when I got done with that, it was like, okay, what questions do you have? And then they would route me to the people that I would then go ask questions of. That was a great experience for me, because then it set me up for later in life when I would have to go, okay, looks like 20 of you are doing everything 20 different ways. And so let's go see all 20 ways to figure out why and figure out where we can get some consistency, and then taking that back to the leadership and going, okay, well, this one's doing it this way and this one's doing it this way. And which way is the right way? And can we do it this way? And trying to settle. But I had to spend so much time talking to people to understand what they understood before I could ever apply anything that I understood to it. So I think that's great advice.
And we would have weekly meetings, our weekly huddles or whatever. And if somebody, I said, does anybody want to share anything? And so if somebody learned something new in Power BI or learned something new in Excel, then, everybody didn't have a problem of sharing their screen and saying, this is what I learned. And
oh gosh,
it was shared learning through that. And, we had people who were on different levels of skills.
Yeah.
But, and there's nothing wrong with being a data analyst and wanting to move into data science. It's just, you can't fast forward in 2 weeks from sort of breaking into the industry to becoming a data scientist. You've got to kind of work your way through, and really I kind of state it as you need to kind of start out with Excel and understand how Excel works. Then you kind of move to SQL, and then you kind of move up because it all kind of builds on each other.
It builds on each other.
And gets a little more complicated, as you go along, but you'll start seeing kind of common themes here and there. Yeah. But you can't jump off from, I'm going to dip my toe in the water on Monday and then be a data scientist on Friday. You've got to be able to kind of make those progressions. And that just takes time.
Well, it's so hard too, because again, we sell that job title, but in the scheme of things, like there's going to be fewer data scientists as compared to data engineers as compared to data analysts. Like they don't naturally just, you go from an analyst and now you're an engineer and now you're a data scientist. It's like you stay an analyst because you don't want to do stats or you're uninterested in coding and your brain doesn't tie data sets together. Well, if you like a little bit of coding and your brain ties data sets together, you may go from being an analyst to a data engineer, right? And then you can take those analyst skills and then rotate into being a machine learning professional. Data science, they're like solving these problems at the top. They have to have data engineers and they have to have data analysts. But I think sometimes people think, I'm just going to hire a data scientist and they're going to do everything.
Yeah.
Data scientist is not a Swiss Army knife. There may be data scientists who are Swiss Army knives, but they have a particular place they're supposed to be and things they're supposed to be doing. They're part of a larger data science effort.
Yes.
Yeah. I just find that's really a challenge for people to understand that. They just think, I'm going to hire this one person. They're going to have all these accolades. They're going to have 30 million years of experience. They're going to know every software known to man. And then you're going to send them in and they're going to be dealing with spreadsheets.
Yeah. That's, I mean, they're
I'm going to be like, wait, what do you want me to do here? I don't do spreadsheets.
Yeah. But I mean, I can't see a world where Excel goes away.
I don't want it to. They put Power Query in it. I definitely don't want it to go away.
I tell people don't sleep on Excel because I think it's not as sexy as learning SQL or learning Python or something. But you can. I've worked in Excel for a long time and I've barely scratched the surface because I
know it's beautiful.
There's so much it can do.
So much it can do, and I find relief in that I don't need to use it for everything. Right? Yeah. Like I don't have to know every single ins and outs of it. And, I think about, like I grew up, my dad was a maintenance man and an electrician. So I grew up around tools. And he would go pick a tool for a particular purpose. Like if he was trying to fix something, he would go select the right tool. He wouldn't just bring a hammer or a wrench for everything. He had all the tools needed. So when people are like so isolated into this is the way we're going to fix this and this is the only tool and they're so very tool driven, I'm like, well, if this would solve your problem, do you just want to buy a fancy tool? And some tools are extremely expensive and you really don't need them to solve your problem. You could have just solved your problem in a pivot table.
Yeah. And I think for me, I try to keep things simple, and I think the simpler it is, the better it is to communicate it and understand it.
Yes.
And not that I don't like Power BI, but I can give you a great example of how we used Excel to keep things simple to communicate a point. So I had just moved to operations from sales and marketing, and the VP of operations asked operations to sort of forecast out the head count that we needed as we grew from, one shift to two shifts to three shifts and four shifts. And so I sat down with our logistics manager and said, okay, let's look at the forecast. Let's plot it out in a table, weeks going this way and years going this way, and said, okay, when do we think we need to hire on another person to load cases in the warehouse? And at what point do we need to bring on a second shift, a third shift, and a fourth shift? And we just sort of built that out and used conditional formatting. So every time we could go sit, we kind of built it out, and then we went to sit in this meeting, and we presented first, and it was either one or two tabs, and it just showed, okay, when it goes from yellow to green, that's when we hire this next person. That's the next person on the head count. You can see that's a year and a half away, just based on how the table was laid out. Wow. And then we did it all the way up to we would have 4 shifts with 4 loaders a shift. And we had it all color coded out. So it was very simple, but very easy to understand.
Yeah.
And then, so we did our presentation, and then engineering and plant manager all came up, and they had about 15 tabs that were so complex that, in my early days of operation, I didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And they went on and on about all this. And at the end of the meeting, the VP looked over at us and said, great job. Y'all are done. Thank you. And then went back and told them, y'all have got a lot of work to do. And they just made it overly complex and hard to understand. And we made it very simple in Excel, very easy to understand, and communicated it out. And we walked out of the meeting and we were like, oh, great, we're done.
That's amazing. But people judge that in our industry. If you're a data professional and you say, we built this really amazing spreadsheet solution that solved all these problems and created all this time for people and whatever there are people who just believe it's because it's Excel, it can't be amazing. And I'm like, you don't know what I know about Excel.
Yeah.
If you knew what I knew about Excel, you wouldn't be saying that to me.
Oh yeah. The engineering.
You'd be like, wait, what? You did that with Excel?
Yeah. So I was sitting in my office that afternoon, and the engineering manager came up and said, hey, send me that file that you did. And they just copied that file that we did into production capacity. And
that's valuable right there.
Yeah.
Immediate. And if it needed to get more advanced, then you've got a baseline to begin with. And then you also know, based on getting it even into the simple and workable functioning part of it, you've identified to the organization, this is a metric of value. And if its value becomes just so major to the organization, maybe it is in line for a capital budget.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. The capacity chart sat in Excel for about 4 years, and it got a little more complex with, if formulas and things like that, if statements. Until it got to the point to where we were looking at building new plants. And at that point, it moved over to a Power BI report that sort of data engineering kind of took over and started working with it, and made it a lot more robust. But that's what was needed at the time, at that point in time. But when we did it, we didn't need to make it very complex. We just needed to communicate that, hey, we're okay in capacity until this particular time. And so that gives us a year, 2 years, 3 years to build another plant to get ahead.
This geeks out. Robin's geeking out. Like, I love that. Like that. I love that. The value of being like, we got a year and a half from spreadsheet that's curated, monitored, following data best practices, using conditional formula. Like you just gave everybody like you got a year and a half. Okay, now you got 6 months. Where are we at on that? Like I don't something even as simple as conditional formatting. People don't understand like a leader who has to make seriously critical decisions in a very short amount of time. If you can color code it up for them and they can make a decision quicker, I don't care how you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you use conditional formatting because it's a time saver, but like format that thing up.
As long as it's right and correct.
As long as it's right.
That's the big thing. But, people in the C-suite don't want to read 3 paragraphs.
No.
They want to read some sort of table or chart or graph with important bullet points to make the decision off of.
Yes. And please give it to them.
Yeah.
Please give it to them. Like, why is it a problem? Like, I definitely have people who will say, I don't know why that senior leader needs that report. That report, like, we could make that report so much better. We could put that report, we can make it like they have so many big plans for this report. And I'm thinking, if that leader can't read your new planned report and make a decision because they can't read what you put together that's so pretty, that leader is not going to be as effective. So no, they're not going to like your fancy report.
Yeah.
They're going to want to keep it. I think it is wise to pay attention to that as an early professional for sure. Like, don't go in there and try to change your boss's reports because they look prettier in another tool.
Right. I mean, and with that, you can't just give somebody a report. You've got to be able to tell them why. If you go in and say, hey, our OEE on our plant was down 10 points last week, the first question they're going to ask you is why? What happened? And so being able to think about, I'm handing in this report and it says on this KPI it's down. If you don't include the why, then it's just an extra frustrating step for the leader to come back and ask you, well, why? What are we doing?
Right.
How are we going to fix this? And and you could take it a step further. Okay. If it's because of X, what's the trend on this particular X?
Yes.
Or, is it the fourth shift overnight? Are they the ones that are driving it, or is it first shift, or is it a particular piece of equipment? I mean, and you may not have that answer right off the top of your head, or even through digging it, but that's sort of the first step you take, is looking at it and go, okay, I see a problem. And then that's when you go grab, a subject matter expert. And I give you a great example of that. We were looking at that capacity chart, and we noticed that our single line was not going to be able to meet demand by the end of the year. And this was December, and we looked ahead in the capacity chart and said, we have to get line 2 running better. And so I said, well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on line 2, but what we can do is grab somebody, the production supervisor off the floor who works with it every day. We grab the maintenance engineer who does all the maintenance planning for it, understands what needs to be done with each machine, the continuous improvement manager who does a lot of the training and sort of like how the plans to get better, and then the data analytics team, which was me and the ops analyst. And we all got in a room every week and went over data. And
I love it.
By 6 months, we had increased efficiency by 57%, and the line was fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's just because nobody could do it alone, but because everybody had different perspectives on it, we were all able to kind of pinpoint the whys behind it.
That's so
and
great,
go
man.
in and make corrections.
Yeah, Derek, that's wonderful. Sometimes I go into organizations and I say to myself, if they knew anything about manufacturing or a production line, they would operate entirely different. Because when you're working in manufacturing, you're working on a production line, the goal is to produce at least the minimum standard level to upkeep whatever you've built. And there's that focus on, okay, well, like we hit this one number, but we're affecting this part of the line, or we're adjusting this tool on the line. And to so many offices, organizations that have no manufacturing or plant experience, like they just don't look at the world the same way. So I wonder how much of what you bring to the table is also inside that good manufacturing, like lean practices, bringing people together to discuss it. Like how much of that comes out of being in that environment?
Do you mean just understanding all of it together?
Yes.
Like I can understand that we need to hit a certain number for demand. If customers are demanding X amount of cases that week, we have to make those cases.
Yes.
And so that's sort of the bottom line with it. But there's so much that goes into it to where, you've got to make sure you clean the equipment for QA to make sure that the product is not compromised. You've got to make sure that maintenance is done. The preventative maintenance, the PMs are done, the preventative maintenance to make sure that, because the old saying is, if you don't schedule preventative maintenance, then the machine will schedule it for you because it'll just break down. And so there's such a big balancing act between all of those things, not just quality and maintenance, but training to get better and just dealing with people who are on their feet for 12 hours. If you have a 12-hour shift, I mean, people in some areas don't understand. I mean, that's hard work to be on. It is hard work. 12 hours and just continuing monitoring a machine, and that's why we brought in the production manager to say, okay, your perspective, what are we seeing that we need to look out for? And and that was invaluable.
I just feel like secretly inside my heart, you are able to spot data throughout a whole process, even if it's just in written form, because you see data in a production line. You can see it from, here's the quality person, here's the process person, here's the finance person, here's the customer demand. And I do spend a lot of time trying to educate people about data is everywhere we look. It's happening in real time all the time. You don't capture every bit of it in a data set, but you might need to know about it for what's captured in the data set. Yeah, I could just geek out with you all day long, Derek. We don't have time for that, though. That's unfortunate. We would need to make that happen. So every guest gets to choose a data point, guest choice. Like I'll give you all the same questions, but you get to choose your data point. And so, yeah, share with us Derek Camp's data point or points.
I think you mentioned it before about automating reports and things like that. A lot of people do this, but I don't think a lot of people quite understand how you can use automation to your benefit, not only at work, but in life. Because I mean, we like to automate reports at work to make things faster, to skip the phase of gathering the data. You kind of go through that, but I've been in the parking lot of a Target probably once every 2 weeks for my wife. She will come and say, hey, I've got a Target pickup. And so, she will get on her phone and she will do the order, and it will be, all I have to do is tell Target I'm coming, and then, hey, I'm ready, and they'll bring it out to me. So it kind of automates that whole grocery shopping process. Save a lot of time. A lot of times I will walk to get lunch. I will order my lunch on my phone, and it'll be ready when I get to the restaurant. My sandwich will be ready, and
there's no wait time.
There's no wait time.
But you had your wait time on your walk over.
Yeah.
5-10
minute walk at the most, and my sandwich is there waiting for me. So I automate skipping the line. I mean, there's so many things that you can automate. I mean, you can automate paying a bill. And so I think some people do a really good job taking advantage of that, and then others could do better. And so I think COVID pushed that along a lot.
Yeah.
When we were going through all that, but I look for anywhere you can automate anything. And then the second thing I've always been sort of conscious of is like, how much do you spend on lunch and coffees and things like that? And, I think people spend a way more than they think on going out to lunch every day. And so, I mean, this may sound like I'm being a penny pincher, but what I do is I have a place I like to eat at. I eat lunch a lot, and I buy a gift card and I put X amount of money on it, and I say that's my budget for the month, and I order.
You are data through and through, and I will tell you, I just made this little note. Your attention to those details shows me that you're a man who values time.
Oh yeah.
And you could not be more perfectly suited to be in where you are, because that is a hallmark probably of how you perform so well, because you take it down to a personal level. Derek, you are amazing. Thank you for coming on my show today.
Thanks for having me.
I saw you on that podcast and I thought, I like that guy. I need to have that guy on my show. I like that guy. I think your approach is practical. I think it's going to work in every situation. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I loved your data point and the fact that you value time like that. That's awesome. All right, guys, let's tell Derek bye. Derek, I'm going to definitely have to see you again.
Anytime.